I'm Sean Fennessey, and this is The Big Picture, a conversation show about horror. Today on the show, Chris Ryan joins me for one of my favorite episodes of the year. It's our annual Halloween season horror extravaganza. Today on the show, we'll talk about 2 new releases in theaters that we've both seen, and quite a few that are on streaming right now, and then also the year in horror itself. Horror has been one of the most consistent performing genres at the movies for roughly the last 20 years, as everything else fell down around it. And it's in this fascinating state. How would you describe the state that horror is in these days?
Financially lucrative, but creatively weird.
A bit mixed, a bit up in the air right now. Some exciting things are happening. Some strange things are happening. Some not so good things are happening. What should we talk about today? Should we talk about Terrifier 3 first?
We got to talk about art.
So I've gotten some messages from people who listen to the show who've been very mad that we have done episodes now on Saturday night and the New York Film Festival and The Apprentice before addressing Art the Clown.
Yeah.
Art the Clown, of course, is the star, the lead figure, the madcap costumed clown killer of the Terrifier series.
Yeah.
This movie is the #1 movie in America right now. Who'd have thunk it? Look at us. 2 guys who love horror movies.
This is definitely an example of us reaping what we sowed.
Yeah, very much so. I'm glad to hear you frame it that way. So, Terrifier 2, which was released in 2022, which is written and directed by Damien Leone. All these films are written and directed by Damien Leone, was this surprise hit. It made $15 million in theaters. It was a sort of for the crowd-funded horror mini indie sensation. And it took me by surprise. I think I had seen the original Terrifier. Maybe I hadn't seen it until after Terrifier 2 blew up. I can't quite remember.
T1 until after T2. Yeah.
Okay, I know, and it's like Cameron now. He is like Damien Leone is like the James Cameron of this era of horror. And so this 3rd installment, there was a ton of anticipation for it amongst this very defined community of horror heads, particularly gore heads. And I would say tell me what your relationship is to the series before we talk about 3. These movies are kill forward. They, to this point, have been very light on story. They do have a classic final girl in Lauren Lavera, who is at the center of the story as Sienna. But she's got bad luck, man, that character. She keeps running into this crazy clown and his adjacent hench people. Do you like the Terrifier films?
I worry about myself in this case because I'm sure there are tests you can take to find out if you're a sociopath or whatever.
Yeah. Where are those tests? I think
it might be watching Terrifier and not having an emotional reaction to it at all. Like, I admire it as like a piece of dance where I'm like, God, the choreography, that's pretty impressive. But does not, I don't understand the narrative or get moved by the stakes. I would not describe these films as particularly tense or visceral. You just are watching. Honestly, it takes me back to being on the couch. A blunt is being passed. Someone has put on the Jizza record and we are watching Faces of Death. It feels illicit. It has cheap thrills. It's very dark. That obviously was like real and very fucked up.
But I think it was not real, actually. I think the Faces of Death films were not real.
But there's some stuff in Faces of Death that was like news footage that was unedited and stuff.
Right. That's true.
And so that's how I feel when I watch Terrifier, where it's like, this feels transgressive and it wasn't the sensation at the box office. I don't know necessarily that we would be dedicating the top of a show to it, but I mean, I'm down for the clown. You know what I mean? I'm glad this is happening. I think it's like a really awesome sign that there's just a voracious audience for a certain kind of filmmaking out there that Hollywood didn't understand and didn't make films for. And we've kind of talked about this before, the like light PG-13ification of horror, and like seeing a couple things where like, damn dog, you took your foot off the gas right at the point where it could have gone into overdrive. And Leone's just like, I got my foot is nailed to the gas pedal by a clown.
I think everything you said is right, except that there is a slightly different way to see these movies. So they are really intense, gory, and disgusting in terms of how they portray the kills. But the Art the Clown character, and I would also say like the kind of pacing and framing of the story,
it's kind of goofy.
It's very itchy and scratchy.
Yeah.
That's how it's been described recently. It's very like high comic, like Buster Keaton wielding an axe.
Yeah.
And I like, that is kind of an innovation, to be honest. There's not a lot of examples. There's obviously a lot of comedy in horror. It reminds me a little bit of Killer Clowns from Outer Space 2, which had a very similar tone, which is quiet and awkward, waiting for something awful to happen. The difference here is that Damien Leone has this sustained focus on the kills. There's one in Terrifier 2, the bedroom kill.
Yeah.
That is probably
Allie?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably the craziest kill sequence. Probably in movie history.
Yeah.
In part because it is sort of durational. It's like Tarkovsky, but for slashing someone's skin off. And I have to doff my cap to Leone. This new film has a handful of incredible moments that we can talk in detail if you'd like to. It's kind of weird to be like, and then the arm was ripped off.
Stabbed in the dick.
The second film is like over 2 hours. This film is also over 2 hours.
Yeah.
They are meant to be these kind of magnum opuses of absurdity. There's a little bit more lore building in this new film that I'm not interested in.
Yeah.
I don't care about Art's
we get
backstory.
Hell makes an appearance in Terrifier 3. There's an idea of how art is regenerated. Not art, like what we cover here, but like Art the Clown is regenerated when you think he's been decapitated by this special sword. And that turns out that he's got his ways of getting back into it,
It's funny too, because this movie has something distinctly in common with the next movie that we'll talk about, Smile 2, and that both films take place like in the immediate aftermath of the last film. So this film opens in the insane asylum where Art has befriended Victoria Hayes and has survived Sienna's onslaught with her sword.
She's given birth to his head, right?
Yes. Which is just a beautiful image. And they said about this weird... Bobby must be so confused right now. Bob, you have any idea what we're talking about?
I just feel like I'm watching basically like if Mozart and Bach got in the same room together talking about the piano.
Yeah.
And I don't know shit about how to play the piano, but it's beautiful to watch.
That is how it feels. Thank you for acknowledging our ability to wrap our arms around these masterpieces. We don't have to recap the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
But the point is that there is an attempt to build out more beyond Art and his relationship with Sienna and her family. The thing that I did like about the movie that I thought was very funny is its relationship to true crime junkies and the way that they're punished in this movie, which was very, very funny. There is a couple, particularly a woman, who is fascinated by the story of Art the Clown and Sienna and everything that has happened to her. And she and her partner meet a grisly end.
Is that the shower scene?
That's the shower scene.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed myself there. There was real Leo pointing at the screen situation during that moment. Where I was like, that is what should happen to everybody who is obsessed with true crime. They should have their dicks cut off and they should be mutilated for hours. The Art the Clown thing, we've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
I'm honestly amazed.
Do you know what this made me think of is, and this actually made me really happy, the success of this film. You know how once a year, twice a year, out of nowhere, there will be like a Christian evangelist movie where it's like a man and a dog on a road trip, but the dog has the soul of his father,
Sure.
This is the counterpoint, but it's Satan.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm glad that there are people out there who are like, I am the devil. Like I needed to see this. I needed this part of my imagination.
Yeah. People who are pointing at the screen and saying that is Zaddy. Yeah, Art is Zaddy.
Yeah. It kind of makes me feel good that the scales of justice are balanced,
Well, the way that I was thinking about the third one watching it, this gave me a little bit of comfort and context into understanding why I dig these movies, which is that they're Michael Bay movies. Like Michael Bay movies often don't have the finest scripts. They're often high concept, low execution in the storytelling. But there's every 18 minutes, something happens where you're like, I've never fucking seen that before.
Yes.
That is amazing that they did that. And I feel very similarly about these movies, that the set pieces, the thing you are waiting for, and the awkward tension as you wait for that thing to transpire is fascinating. And from a Hollywood business perspective, this is a great story. I think it portends something a little bit more complicated, not necessarily bad. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about this because at the box office, horror has been down a bit this year.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of that is attributable to the strikes. Most of that is because a lot of projects that would have been in production or would have had reshoots or whatever were removed. If you look at the movies that are coming out next year, there are a ton of franchise horror movies
this
planned for
is
2025
as well.
Yes. Yeah. But in these open spots that have appeared, you've seen indie filmmakers fill them up. And they're almost like a stress test for what horror fans really want. So to your point about the PG-13ification of horror over the last 10 years.
That would be like, if people are trying to think of what we're talking about, like Night Swim would be a good example of a movie where I'm like, the only people going to Night Swim want to see the truly most fucked up version of Night Swim they can see. And sometimes I felt like Night Swim would be like, oh, we don't want to scare you too much.
I think Blumhouse and Atomic Monster, I think any of the shingles, the Sony shingles like Studio 6 and everything that comes out of there, all of those movies are trying to appeal to teenagers. They're trying to get as many younger people into the theater, when in fact, weird 40-something dudes just love to watch somebody get their head cut off with a motorboat engine. Guys
stared deeply at the Rain and Blood album art. Like,
that's right.
Want to fucking see this.
All the Slayer babies who are raised on true horror.
Yeah.
They do want these things. But what I'm seeing now is this kind of stratification where this could be what movies look like in the future for other genres, where you have smaller projects that have really strong fan bases that are crowdfunded or funded by a handful of investors and are platformed differently than the way we see studio movies get platformed. And so what it creates is like an increasingly fractured anti-monoculture.
Yeah, it's like politics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to say I'm against Terrifier 3 and I'm only for Nicholas Sparks adaptations, but they just don't, they're not talking to each other. They're not related in any way. It almost becomes like a different art form. That's interesting to me.
That's a really fascinating take. I hadn't really considered that. I hadn't really considered the knock-on effect to it, because you have to understand that like they'll do anything to make a buck in this town.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
But they're overlooking many things, it feels like.
But it almost is like, oh, if we can just outsource this to Damien Leone. But like I guess the one thing you could say is that if Terrifier 3 somehow had a connection to not Disney, but like Paramount or something, would there be more outcry about it? Would people be like, oh, we can boycott Paramount? We can. I'm actually kind of shocked that people aren't more outraged by this, given the culture wars.
I think that fractured.
Like JD Vance, where are you, man?
But
like Art the Clown.
It's the last time that question will ever be asked on this podcast. I think that what's happened is that people don't care anymore. Like, it is only for the sickos. And they've found the $30 million worth of sickos, and they're speaking directly to them. And everyone else doesn't have to participate.
Wait until like 8 days when all the kids in America are dressed as Art the Clown for Halloween.
Well, I guess that could happen. That if the film becomes that level of a true sensation, maybe that's possible. But I don't think that the culture wars operate in the same way as they used to.
No.
I don't think it's about like protect the kids from Art the Clown. I think it's much more like protect the kids from like gendered bathroom decisions. And because of that, the horror sickos and people who listen to like aggressive music, or people who like
just address me by name if you want.
Just like guys like you were into hentai, like anybody like that, you guys can kind of have fun on your own. You're left to your own devices, quite literally.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting turn of events. We don't have these Tipper Gore-esque figures now in our culture saying like Art the Clown is ruining my child's life.
Yeah, much like you, very much in support of these movies, and will continue to watch them and enjoy them, and love like the references they make back to slasher films of the 80s and everything. There is like invisible SEO around this movie, and there's like a virality to it that I think is very contemporary, where I do think part of its popularity is like, it's like looking at a YouTube like headline that's like, you won't believe the sick prank I just pulled where I pretend to be dead. Like that this movie has that. It's just not written on the poster. But this has got kind of like this is how Longlegs got marketed. The scariest movie of the century and all this stuff. They're not doing that with Terrifier 3, but they could just be like the sickest shit you've ever seen. You can't even imagine what they do to people in this movie. If you ever wanted to see a guy get his dick stabbed 21 times, it happens.
I think it's because the horror community is so loyal and often uncritical. And in some cases, you and I are uncritical. Like, I'm much more willing to give a pass to a mediocre horror movie if it has one great sequence than a prestige drama that I feel like makes a wrong turn at a certain point, and I hold that against it. And if that's a contradiction, so be it. I don't really know what to say. I'm just more likely to have more fun at a horror movie that has something for me.
Yeah.
These movies, though, they know how to find their audience, and their audience is not worried about converting other people. Like they're evangelical about their love for something, but not about convincing you to like it. They're happy to have the thing that they like and sit in it. Longlegs was a little different because that was it's still an independent movie, still a neon movie, but it's a movie that features Nicolas Cage, who's very famous, and was marketed like during sports.
Yeah.
Which Terrifier 3 is not doing that. They don't have like an ad buy across the Ringer podcast network, aside from this episode, which is gratis for the record. And I think I'm really honestly inspired by that. I think it's very, very cool that they were able to build something up to this point independently, and that it seems like Damien Leone retains ownership of this project in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And can do with it whatever he likes. This isn't even, the first Terrifier movie isn't even the first time Art appeared. He appeared in the All Hallows Eve movie, which is over 10 years ago. This is like a life's work that he's been working towards. The fact that it has culminated in multiple dick stabbings, that's great.
It's not, if you've been paying attention to the independent horror scene, it's not shocking that something like this has come out of it, because there's a lot of trilogies and series that are long running for the last 15 years that have made their bones on VOD and fests and kind of word of mouth, and they're really cheap. And
you recommended, I think 3 years ago, the Hell House LLC films, which now I feel like there are 5 or 6 of them.
There's 4, I think, now.
4.
Yeah, I think they just did a 4th one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an example of what you're talking about, where those movies must cost $500,000.
I don't know. Yeah, like it can't be that much, but like those, I watch it. I'll watch every single one of them.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. It is something that horror can do that there can't be like a version of this for Oppenheimer, for example. But
it's not trying hard enough. Chris Nolan.
I haven't talked about.
Can we talk about the Chris Nolan rumors?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so there's 3 rumors right now what the movie is.
All I've heard is espionage. What have you heard?
I've heard horror or The Prisoner adaptation.
That has
apparently been
rumored.
Debunked.
Okay.
The third one that is the craziest is that he is making an adaptation of Blue Thunder, the Roy Scheider helicopter cop
the John
movie.
Badham movie? Yeah, okay. Why would he do that?
I don't know.
I haven't seen that movie in years. Okay, that's
Can you
very
imagine if
weird.
Christopher Nolan was like, I need to make a helicopter cop movie?
Well, let's game out his since this is the horror episode. Chris Nolan's horror movie. Guy kills his wife.
Yeah,
obviously.
definitely.
He's haunted by it in some way. Is it just what lies beneath? Is that the movie?
She's got to come back, right? So she comes back for her vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like all of the dead wives of Nolan's filmography.
That's great.
That's
really good.
Cotillard and Gyllenhaal and all our baddies come back.
I like that quite a bit. I love when quote unquote prestigious directors dip their toes in horror. I love when De Palma returns to that sort of thing. I really, really like that. That would be bold to have just completed this Oppenheimer run, this $1 billion Best Picture winning run, and to make a
haunted house
dingy,
movie.
fucked up, scary movie. I would. That would fully convert me.
Yeah.
To Nolan head.
Right now, you're Chris Curious.
Yeah. I'm open-minded
Yeah,
about
you're
everything that he does.
undecided
It's truly. I'm like, how will he do in his Fox News interview? I'm not sure. How'd you feel about the Fox News interview?
Yeah, she did her best.
Brett Baer, is he a real journalist or just a party hack? What do you think? No thoughts? I think that these movies are...
Do you think that it would have been sick if Kamala, they cut back to her and she was doing the smile?
I was just going to make that joke. Yeah. Do you think we should talk about Smile? Is there anything else you want to say about the Terrifier movies? Would you recommend them to anybody who's not a freak?
Honestly, no. I think that you and I are almost like... I do worry about us that we're just like, this imagery has absolutely no impact on our dreams and nightmares.
Yeah, this is
but I think showing it to like Bobby, he would either be like, you two need to go into a criminally insane asylum, or like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, who would watch this for pleasure? But lots of people, or maybe I'm being a prude. I don't know. I mean, I love this shit, but like, I wouldn't show it to somebody in Gen Pop.
Let's do some self-exploration here quickly. Because on the one hand, like I think an ongoing bit about me on the show is that I'm a sociopath, right? There's been a lot of hay made of, plain Sean and not knowing how to communicate with people, sometimes not turning off the charm or whatever. Because I'm like, I gotta go somewhere.
Like you've been paying attention to those episodes.
Wearing my AirPods, no. I've been paying attention to my interactions with my friends who point these things out to me. But I think you can mock me if you want. I think I'm like a pretty regular guy.
And
I think you are too.
I'd like to think so.
I think we're just like, I go to the grocery store, I hang out with my family, I watch sports.
I throw a Zin in.
Yeah.
I'm watching Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, you crank it to some hentai and you go to sleep.
Just swiping on some Instagram reels, checking out some kettlebell swing workout routines.
Dude, I saw
That's
a reel
Chris.
today that was it's fucking guys making plans in their late 30s, and it's the action is the juice scene from Heat, and it's Kilmer is the single guy, De Niro is recently married, and Sizemore is longtime relationship married, and Sizemore is just like, I need it. The action is the juice.
That's
So good shit.
You love reels.
Sure.
I make that point.
I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy.
And I make that point because I'm like, this is the sickest thing I do. Like, this is my
Absolutely.
probably my addiction at this point is how many horror movies a year can I watch? I noted I logged 53 horror movies that were released this year
Good
for this
you, man.
episode.
Yeah.
Many of which are not good, and we won't talk about them. But I'm seeking a thrill. I'm seeking something that I can't get anywhere else with this stuff. Terrifier 3 is definitely not the best movie that we'll talk about in this episode, but it is at the highest level of like, whoa.
A good segue to this is that we saw Smile 2 it was more of like a fan screening.
It was.
We saw it the other day, and it's me and Sean, and we're just like, hello, and what do you think of the top of the order for the Mets? And then everybody else is dressed rather goth, like pretty
Yes,
goth.
yes.
Like we're horror fans, self-identified, reflecting it back in the world. I think that's much healthier than what we do.
Oh, interesting.
I think we're Batemaning out, where we're just normal guys who wear like J. Crew, and then we fucking watch art. Beat a woman with her own arms and scald her with acid.
But why can't I have it all? Like, why can't I shop at J. Crew and consume this content? That's the thing is, I also don't want to be castigated for that.
Yeah.
I want to be, I don't need to make it my costume, is what I'm trying to say.
That's great. That's good.
Let's talk about Smile 2.
Yeah.
Smile 2 is the huge horror release of the weekend. Smile 1, which came out 2 years ago as well, was the horror mega hit of that year. It grossed $217 million. First-time filmmaker Parker Finn, his debut, an original story, exactly the kind of thing I'm begging for in the horror space. And this follow-up, once again, comes from Paramount. It is also, like Terrifier 3, set just days after the events of the first film. There's this malevolent entity in these movies. It transfers from person to person upon death.
The rules of which are somewhat complicated.
They are complicated. We can talk about whether they work or don't work. But Kyle Gallner, legend now of genre filmmaking, of horror films, probably the biggest guy going in the space in the last 10 years, who appeared, earlier this year in Strange Darling and has had this great run. Dinner in America, I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but that movie is having a huge bump, which is not quite a horror movie, but is genre, and it's from the guy who made Snack Shack. And you check out Dinner in America when you get home.
Holy shit.
You will really like it.
Okay.
Nevertheless, he's having this great run, and the movie kind of opens on him. It ended on him, and it opens on him.
It's a character named Joel.
Joel, the police officer.
Yeah.
And eventually it finds its way from Joel to Sky Riley. Sky Riley is a pop star portrayed by Naomi Scott in this movie. She has had a grim accident 1 year earlier, and she's getting over some personal struggles. She's gone to rehab for her substance abuse, and she's attempting to relaunch her career and her tour after these struggles. And she's stricken with the Smile malady.
Yeah.
What did you think of the first Smile?
So that was one you were asking me a little while ago, like, why do you think that this was such a hit? One of the great horror trailers of recent memory.
Mm-hmm.
Just an incredible bit. Every time you would see it in the theater, which, with AMC, it's like you see it fucking every time, you would just be like, I got to see what this Smile thing is about. So I got it. The actual product compared to the trailer is much different. It's much more dour. It's very serious. It's much more about trauma and just like a lot of like, this is actually all just a metaphor for this person's issues or whatever. I thought that this film kind of split it the difference, where much more fun. Maybe not like a fun time, but much more fun. Like there were obvious scenes that were made for jokes. There were characters who were there for comic relief. The culmination of the film is very daffy, and then winds up almost on a pretty slick joke. There's a punchline almost at the end. So while I admired it maybe even more than the first one, I still feel like there is something unintentionally repetitive about the scenes in the story that like just don't really do it for me on a big level. Like I'm glad I'm watching it when I'm watching it. I'm happy to have seen it, but there's something about the way Finn kind of like stages scenes that never feels like the ball's going downfield. It feels like we're playing the same play over and over again. And then he rushes all of this mythology in to explain everything, to wrap everything up.
I think that's a great way to describe it. I am really, really mixed on the first movie and this movie for very simple reasons. One, I think the craft in this movie is pretty amazing. I think he's got a very distinct style, and he basically manages to manifest the feeling of being stuck in the Smile headspace by having this roving camera that's kind of moving in POV fashion all over the place at all times. And he's got this crazy control of sound design where the sound cuts out entirely and you know something horrible is going to happen and you can feel yourself gripping your chair as it's happening. So he builds towards scares very well. He's also really into practical gore, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
He did a great job with it in the first film, even better job in this movie. Clearly had a lot more money to spend on this movie.
Hell yeah.
I think he gets great performances out of his actors.
God, Naomi Scott's really
She's
good.
excellent in this movie. But ultimately, I find these movies really shrill and annoying. I find like after an hour of being inside of the Smile story that it is redundant, like you say, that he does not really iterate on the idea of the first film in any meaningful way. I saw someone suggest interestingly that actually using Joel as the lead would have been a more interesting choice because what a cop does when they know there's something wrong with them and they have to transfer this violence to someone else could have created.
It's the best scene in the movie.
The opening scene of this movie is amazing.
Yeah.
And what it made me want was his action movie or his heist movie and not his horror movie.
Well, it's not really even, I would argue that this is hardly a horror movie as much as it's a musical and a kind of Stars Born thing that then has to have a horror movie at the end.
And I think he does some interesting stuff using the pop star conceit because obviously we know, having watched movies about them and documentaries and read about them, being a pop star is incredibly isolating.
It seemed like that in Trap as well, you know?
Very true. And what a time for that.
Lady Raven versus Sky Riley, like the stands are out.
Yeah. And I think because of that, and I've seen a lot of people compare this to Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue as well, which I know you haven't seen, but it's an anime movie about a pop star and about the paranoia of being a pop star. And I think that there's some interesting psychological ideas there, but also that is one of the most unrelatable experiences in the world. And the first film is just about a regular girl who gets stuck with this and who's going through her life and trying to figure it out. Naomi Scott is asked to do a lot to portray like not just the addiction, but the sort of like the sense that success is slipping through your fingers, that you've worked really hard to build something and it's going away. The problem is, and this is why I find the movie shrill, not only does he overemphasize like the sound design and the jump scares, and it's very jump scary, the movie can be written off as all happening in someone's head. And so there are dozens and dozens of minutes of events that are just imagined.
We were trying to identify when, if you, so this is spoilers, I guess, for Smile 2. After she gets the smile passed on to her, it's basically like, at what point does she start hallucinating? You know, and there are full characters and full storylines that at the end of the film, it seems apparent never actually took place.
It's unclear.
But it's like 60% of the movie. So it's a cool twist, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a Sixth Sense twist because you know that a lot of stuff is happening in her head. Also, like the kind of capabilities of the Smile Demon, which it can text, you know, like it seems like it's like somewhat in the world, but also needs vessels. It is a little confusing at times.
It's just not clear.
Yeah,
I think it doesn't go out of its
totally
way.
Fine. Like I've seen way fucking crazier horror movies. And I'm like, I'm with it. Like I'm just rolling with this.
Yeah, I think the challenge is there is a little bit more of an attempt. In fact, there is a character who is introduced in the movie who is the exposition machine, who explains how he knows what's been transpiring to everyone. Whether that person is real or not is unclear to us. And that just throws everyone for a loop. It's like, so did you give us information about how this is all working, or did you just have the demon entity trick the person who is currently possessed to make them even more crazy? The lack of clarity on that, I found just more like a little bit frustrating rather than clever. And I think it wants to be clever. I agree with you, though, about the final 5 minutes of the movie, which I think is very bold and funny.
Yeah.
And I gotta tip my cap to that.
Let me
as well.
workshop a theory
Okay.
I got for you. When you're introduced to a character, like you are the two protagonists of the Smile films, but I would even broadly say this is a trend that's been happening. Loosely in my head think of this as like Saint Maud core, or like something around like the A24 influence on film, on horror films, where the character themselves is already in such a dark place that the introduction of horror just makes that place worse. It actually, at a certain point, doesn't have the same impact as horror happening to people in a completely unsuspecting moment. Now, obviously, trauma and horror go hand in hand. It's always been this way. But when you think back to the great horror characters, often to me, their life is being upset, not made marginally worse by the fact that now like the darkness inside of them has been manifested as like some kind of demon or haunted house or whatever. Right. It's more like the Texas Chainsaw Kids who were just like on the road and then look what happens.
It was a previously happy circumstance.
Poltergeist, the family moves into a house. They had no idea. And then this happens. You know what I mean? Like there's something random and terrifying. The Strangers is a great example of this. Like where I like it when it feels like you weren't selected because you're going through something. You're selected because we selected you. And also, the horror feels like a huge tonal shift to what this person's life is. Rather than I'm already walking through a lonely ghostscape in my own life, and now horror has made it 17% worse. If Sky Riley starts this place as I'm just
a happy pop star.
I'm just like the biggest...
I wouldn't use her as an example.
No, but like I'm just the biggest pop star
if
in
I'm
the
Dua
world.
Lipa, if she's Dua Lipa.
Yeah, who's just like, have you guys ever had fucking pickle juice and a Diet Coke? Like, I don't know if you've seen that, but like if she's just like loving life.
Yeah.
And then this happens, that's crazy. It also makes it much harder to like convince people that this is happening, because if Dua Lipa all of a sudden one day woke up and was like, I've cut all my hair off and like all this stuff, you'd be like, whoa, what's happening to Dua
Lipa? It would be more shocking. But I think that it speaks to the complaint that we've had over the last couple of years about trauma core. Like this movie is essential to these movies.
Yes, well, it's like the whole thing is that the demon has latched on to her guilt about this accident.
Exactly, and is leveraging it. There's a couple of amazing sequences. There's a sequence with her backup dancers that is so cool. There's some of her visualizations, manifestations of her fear are really, really cool, but it just doesn't add up to anything. Like the movie ends in a very similar way to the first film. We don't really learn any more, and I don't need more lore, but I think I need like an elevation of the concept, and I don't really feel like I got it. So I think I'm a little bit on the outside of other people with this one. The first movie was huge. This new film's getting good reviews, but a lot of the time while I was watching it, I was just like, I wish this was over.
I will say, for the sake of being a little bit more positive about it, because I've been thinking about it, I need this film to do really well so that there's a Smile 3 and we find out what happens, because it ends in a much different place.
It does.
Where it could change the story. It's a really good idea for a Smile 3. I just don't know if it'll go there with it.
Well, so Parker Finn, it was announced, and I don't know how real this is because it felt like a prank, but it was announced that he is embarking on a remake of Zalowski's Possession. Possession is a movie that is somewhat similar to Smile, to be honest with you. It is made in a completely different register, but it's a movie about a kind of manic hysteria that encroaches upon one person played by Isabelle Adjani, and it blows up one of these happy situations that we're talking about. Like in the movie, Sam Neill and Isabelle Adjani are in this marriage. She wants to end the marriage. He doesn't want to end the marriage. It's clear that she's got something else going on. Is she being unfaithful, or we're not totally clear? And it's this hysterical chamber drama that turns into something completely crazy and unexpected. And it arrives fairly late in the film. And when you find out what it is, you're like, who in God's name could have ever thought of this idea? But it is a true horror idea. One, if you're just going to make that movie again, I don't know why you would. I don't know what it's just such a beautiful portrayal of being in a difficult time in a relationship that could end, that it doesn't need to be remade for any meaningful reason. If he's going to bring some of his craft to it and make it a little bit more outsized, I guess that's interesting. But it also means that, like, one, he's staying in this genre. Two, he's not doing Smile 3 right away, presumably. And three, he is even more art house maybe than I'd expected. Yeah. Possession's become like a really hot movie in the last 15 years. But I don't know. I'm torn because I can see that he's really talented. and I wish these movies are better because they're like the most popular new horror franchise in 10 years.
I think that I would describe myself as bored often in this second film, but there were parts of it where I was like, keep doing this. Like the Dylan Goella character.
She's very funny in this, yeah.
Just even getting Rosemary DeWitt to be in it and do her thing, like was like, I was like, keep getting them checks. Rosemary.
I was like, man, Rosemary DeWitt is just in her mom phase. I was kind of sad about that. I always loved her. She's good in the movie.
Yeah, she's a stage mom, basically. Yeah. So there was like, I was like, there are breadcrumbs leading to like a loosening up of this being like, you will experience 2 hours of this person's breakdown and then they'll die. You know, like,
I often thought, I was listening to you and Bill in the rewatchables about Blair Witch and, all that focus on, is it Heather?
Yeah,
Donahue? Heather. And that famous shot up her nostrils and the snot coming down. There's like 5 moments like that that Naomi Scott has to endure in this movie.
Pull her hair out.
Yeah, it's very, very intense and visceral, but honestly, a little unpleasant. Anyway, Smile 2, I think this is going to be a very big film. I think people are going to like it.
Yeah.
Salem's Lot. Did you watch this?
I did, man.
So we're moving into the streaming territory of our discussion.
It's always a gold rush right around now, but sometimes this gold is actually painted copper.
It's
you know
fools.
What I mean?
There's something fools about Salem's Lot. This movie's been in production / post-production for a very long time.
Yeah.
It is now on Max. It's written and directed by Gary Dauberman, who's done a lot of work in the Conjuring universe.
Mm-hmm.
He directed, I thought, a very good Annabelle sequel that I liked quite a bit. This movie is based on Stephen King's 1975 classic. I would say is maybe my second favorite Stephen King novel. Pretty high up there.
And had a miniseries treatment in the 80s that is
79.
Beloved.
Toby Hooper. Toby Hooper's 2-part, 4-hour Salem's Lot movie.
James Mason.
Which is very good with James Mason. And there was also a 2004 miniseries that I never saw. I don't know if you ever saw that one.
I have not.
This is a classic, there's a vampire in your town. There's a vampire in your main town movie.
Yeah.
It's a very much in the vein of the Northeastern anxieties and the secrets that people keep in Stephen King novels. This new film stars Lewis Pullman, Mackenzie Lee, Alfre Woodard, Bill Camp, Pilo Asbæk from Game of Thrones. Pretty cool cast. It's about an author who comes back to his childhood home. He's in search of inspiration for his next book. He finds out, lo and behold, there's vampires in his town. And then what happens? I thought this was terrible. I don't know what to say. I thought it was really meandering, oddly paced, seemed like it had been sliced and diced, and was shot with that streaming tint that just doesn't look like a real movie.
Yeah, and it's also inexplicably a period piece, so the streaming tint thing seems very much like a Hall of Presidents Disney World kind of feel.
It makes all the production design look like they just opened everything up out of the box and it's all brand new.
Yeah.
What a bummer.
Yeah. Gary Dauberman, I believe, has talked about how he had like a 3.5 hour cut of this movie. And, I'm a big release the Dauberman cut guy, but this should have just been a miniseries.
It should have. This is a big novel and a big story.
Yeah. I think there could have been a little bit more creative liberty taken with this. Like, I don't really want to get into like how iPhones would change Salem's Lot, but I think it could have been a contemporary telling of this tale. There's also threads that are just abandoned. Like, it'll start obviously going in the direction of what you would do if you were doing a 4-episode limited series of this show, and then just drops it.
Whole characters where I'm like, so what happened to that character?
Real fucking shame too, because this is a pretty talented cast.
Yeah.
Bill Camp's really good in it.
He is.
Lewis Pullman is going to be pretty big deal, but it's just like, I don't understand. You guys are going to put this on streaming. Like, why not let him just do the 3.5 hour version of this and put it out in 2 parts?
I couldn't agree with you more. It actually makes no sense to try and make this a more digestible mainstream. It's the same issue you're pointing out about the PG-13ification. Make a rip-roaring, gnarly, long, expansive version of this. I felt the same way about Dr. Sleep. Dr. Sleep came out. I was kind of mixed on it.
Immediately, like, there's a Mike Flanagan
and then
cut.
As soon as the Flanagan comes out, it was like, well, this is a much better version of this movie. It retains what's good about the first film, but expands on what otherwise was unexplained. And once again, it's Stephen King. And you've got this great prompt here.
Yeah.
About King. Now, King, I guess, is kind of back.
He is.
And
he's actually been here full on since the blockbuster It's, but
so that's 6 years.
Yeah. And obviously with King, I'm sure there are rights issues with various novels and adaptations being owned by various studios. And and so it would be impossible, for instance, to have like a Kevin Feige figure of Stephen King, where there's going to be
That's a good idea,
this
though.
uniform kind of shared King universe. We're going to have a shared aesthetic.
Oh, I like that.
I'm going to pick and choose how we're going to roll these out. Like the books themselves, the pleasure of them is that they're kind of all around Castle Rock or whatever, or Derry, but like they're going to be like, you can read them standalone, you could read them somewhat connected.
Well, there was the Hulu series that attempted to do that.
And they've got a Max series coming next year called Welcome to Derry that's going to attempt to be sidecar around it, I think. So Pennywise adjacent stuff. I don't know. I love Stephen King stories, but I think that my taste for Stephen King is more in the like Maximum Overdrive kind of trash cinema than it is like prestigious, really refined, like high-end adaptations of his stuff, Shawshank accepted. But we've had a couple of examples over the last decade. Boogeyman, Pet Sematary, there was 2 of those. Firestarter, The Dark Tower, The Stand, The Children of the Corn, which I guess they made like 3 of those. I didn't even know that. And then we have a bunch coming. Oz Perkins.
All the ones you just named, I didn't care for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the Pet Sematary with Amy Simons had like its moments.
It has its moments. Yeah. Boogeyman has its moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like these have just not been done very well.
Yep.
And I especially have not been done with an eye towards like, what could we do with all this material that would make it maybe feel vaguely cohesive, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of his themes are still really resonant too. And I wonder if some of the struggles to modernize these stories, which you're suggesting they could have done for Salem's Lot, is part of the problem.
Sure.
You know, like the Firestarter remake, which is just completely bungled. And the original is no great shakes. It's okay. It's, it's enjoyed as a cult classic. But the first Pet Sematary is a great movie. And I don't know if it was understood that way at the time, but it's a movie that like fully got the themes that he was after and added something to it. And
Christine's great.
Christine is very good.
Not great.
Obviously, The Shining is legendary. Like there have been incredible adaptations of his work, but I feel like there's something very 1978 about a lot of his stories, and it's been hard for people. Really, only Flanagan to me is the only person who's really been able to get his arms around.
I would argue Mike Flanagan
work.
would be a great Kevin Feige of the Stephen King world.
You've got, and as we know, The Life of Chuck is a Stephen King story, really more in the Shawshank vein than in the true horror vein. But gosh, that must have been suggested to him at some point, right?
I just think that the rights issues are probably, like, I would imagine that they're just all, and Warner's obviously owns a bunch of this, and I guess owns Derry as an idea, because they've now done these 2 series about it, or have at least got the second one coming. I do think that probably you're either stuck between these 2 poles where you either should do like a wildly creative, crazy take on Stephen King, or you should do a page-for-page miniseries adaptation of it. But trying to take Salem's Lot and make it into a 2-hour film that you're not going to put in theaters is kind of silly.
Yeah, you pointed out here that there is 3 pretty big things coming. The Oz Perkins movie.
Trailer just dropped to that.
Which is
The Monkey.
Is Monkey Shines, right? And the Edgar Wright and Glenn Powell Running Man, which is actually happening.
Yeah.
I'll be surprised if that doesn't work. If that's not good.
Yeah.
I will be very surprised. I think Stephen King and
But
Edgar Wright are
I would
good fit.
imagine Edgar Wright is going to apply that idea to our contemporary reality TV viral fame.
Yeah. I'll share with you the unkind thing I said about Smile 2 after we saw it, which is it felt like Edgar Wright trying to make a Kubrick movie, which sounds like it could be cool, but has some potential struggles. I will see anything that is based on a Stephen King story, even if I haven't read it at this point, and I haven't read any of his stuff in the last 20 years.
Would you want to see Damien Leone's Stephen King story? What would you want him to adapt?
Ooh, that's a good thing. A good question. Needful Things? That could be interesting. I love that movie. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that we haven't mentioned that has been adapted previously, like Misery, obviously. Misery could be interesting.
Oh my God.
There's an axe-wielding killer in that movie. What else? I don't know.
I would Damien Leone with the trucks, Maximum Overdrive
You
would
want
be
to see
pretty cool.
Maximum Overdrive? Yeah, I think there's also plenty of stories in like Skeleton Crew and stuff like that could still be mine too. Gore is not at the forefront of the
fear.
Stephen King experience.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's fear. So Damien Leone, I think he should just keep doing what he's doing.
Stick with art. Stick with the guy who brought you to prom.
How many art movies do you think there will be by the time we die?
I was just joking about this. I think that 6. I think we'll get to 6.
I think we'll get past that. I think we'll blow past that. I think we're talking like
10.
Amityville Horror style. Like there's 14 of these.
Do you think he's going to direct every one? Do you think he's going to find a protege? And do you think he's accepting applications?
Would you do it? Would you direct art in a film?
CR and Fenney's version of Terrifier.
Is that how you want to be credited?
In the horror community? Yeah.
Nothing says horror like
Fangs,
CR and
Fennessey.
Fennessey. Okay. VHS Beyond.
Yeah.
It's become an annual tradition to talk about the new VHS movie on this show. The current one, VHS Beyond, is streaming on Shudder right now. If you're not subscribed to Shudder, I don't know what you're doing.
Don't know.
Shudder's still great. It's been great for a decade now.
Honestly, they tried to take Shudder down, and like it's still ticking.
It can't be beat.
A lot of people came and tried to take their material and put it on their streaming service, and Shudder's still fucking up the game.
I mean, they still have the best library of pure horror.
Yeah.
60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It's some things fluctuate and move in and out of the rights ownership, but the VHS series is one of the most consistent and enjoyable things happening in horror. I think every edition we can quibble with. This one leans more science fiction. It features the introduction of a few first-time directors, Justin Long among them, with, I guess, his brother, Christian Long, has one of the entries here.
And Kate Siegel directed one that's written by her partner, Mike Flanagan. Exactly.
That's her directorial debut. My friend, Jay Cheel, who made the Cursed film series, directed the wraparound sequence in this film. The abduction sequence, which is sort of about like the existence of UFOs and conspiracy culture. And there is always like a kind of wraparound sequence in these movies. Jay is more of a documentary filmmaker, so that's why it has that style. And what'd you think of VHS Beyond?
Thought it was like very thematically coherent. But one thing I really wanted to chat with you about is the insurgency into horror of using other forms as like to beckon people in. So the first true short in VHS Beyond is essentially like playing Resident Evil.
Yes.
It is a video game.
Truly.
There is a lot of the acting in several of these segments. It reminds me of watching people on YouTube doing like, hey, check out this sick stunt I'm about to pull. Like that kind of stuff happens a lot. And a little bit of like, obviously in the wraparound, like true crime podcasting and true crime documentary filmmaking. So it's very interesting to me to see a lot of this stuff, which I guess we've probably picked up starting with Host and Unfriended, and the idea of using like the computer as the portal that we're going to have the horror take place in, to see all this like extra cinematic influence on this genre, which I think it's particularly susceptible to, but I was curious if you had picked up on that as well.
Well, I mean, the origin of the series itself is more like we found a VHS tape in someone's basement.
You won't believe the crazy shit that we see.
And it's moved in, it kind of necessarily has moved beyond that. It still is using, for the most part, the found footage.
Yeah, I think in the beginning,
ideology.
Beyond, they were like, we found these 2 tapes that prove UFOs exist.
Right.
Yeah.
And frankly, every film is perspective drawn. And I think the performances are always pretty hit or miss in these movies. In general, I think there are a few moments in the film where it is straining to retain its horror bona fides by just having a wild kill in a sequence that otherwise maybe shouldn't have had a wild kill. I thought Dream Girl in particular was kind of fascinating. This was the Virat Paul kind of Bollywood send-up about a kind of like lionized Bollywood performer, beautiful woman who is, spoiler alert, secretly like an AI robot, like a Terminator, and loses the plot and begins killing everyone. I think that would have been a maybe more interesting movie if that robot didn't start killing everyone, to kind of figure out like what is really the nature of creativity and what are these industries, like what is Bollywood really looking for long term. That's a cool idea.
Yeah.
It didn't need to be like shooting lasers out of its eyes to make that idea work. So I guess, would it have been better if it was a little more like Arthur Clarke than Toby Hooper?
Yeah.
Possibly.
My favorite one is also the one that's probably like it pulls the string on this the most, which was the skydiving one.
Live and Let Die, yes, by Justin Martinez.
So the premise is basically like a guy has a surprise birthday trip up into the air to do skydiving with his buddies, and he's wearing like a GoPro. And while they're up in the air, a UFO appears, and like F-16 start attacking the UFO, and the aliens like escape from the UFO. So when they parachute to the ground, they have to fight their way out of an orange grove being invaded by aliens, which is pretty sick, but also kind of betrays the idea that UFOs are just hidden out of sight, because F-16s attacking UFOs in broad daylight would probably warrant some kind of media attention. That would be the point of like the entire film if that had happened. You know, like
I think it's one of the shortest, if not the shortest, of all the films in the short films inside of this film, and I think it's because the minute you try to sustain an idea around it, it falls apart.
Yeah.
But it's so viscerally made. You're so inside of it.
It's like, this is pretty good. Like, I don't know how much this costs, but this is pretty awesome.
I agree. It looks
I also
amazing.
like, I can't tell if I'm watching like somebody giving an AI prompts to be like, now I want the alien to throw a truck.
I don't know. I mean, I hope not.
I hope not too, but like that might be where special effects are going. For,
it's
like,
possible. The special effects across the board in this movie are pretty good, considering that these are lower budget films.
The Case Eagle one has like really trippy kind of like, and that kind of reminded me of some of the more experimental Skinamarink stuff that we've been watching.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to talk about that. I'm not sure if that segment completely worked for me, whatever that means, but it was the boldest of anything in here, and something that is trying to get to a more metaphysical space with what the story's trying to do about a woman who discovers a kind of like regenerative alien life form and finds herself kind of in this experience of constantly being sort of like healed but transformed while she is making contact with this
it kind of
form.
reminded me of Jeffrey Vandermeer's novels, the Annihilation novels.
That's right. It is similar to that, but again, told very intimately in this perspective approach. And I thought that was a weird way to end it, but a pretty cool idea for something. And a lot of these films have fairly bare bones approaches to dialogue and storytelling, which is something that it has in common with the next movie we'll talk about. But I think this is like a cool collection and all different enough. Like Fur Baby is the Justin Long movie, is very Tusk. You can tell his experience on Tusk informed the making of this movie, which is more of like a comic interlude.
And parts of Barbarian.
Definitely parts of Barbarian for sure. The sort of going into the basement feeling of that movie. I thought Stork was pretty good too from a practical perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a successful VHS if you're like, I wish I had seen a whole movie about this.
Yeah.
And I thought that about most of these. The Katie Siegel one I thought was interesting because if you think about horror as like a musical genre and directors hearing some other album, but instead seeing some other film, trying to interpolate that into their vision.
Yep.
One of the biggest things that's happened over the last couple of years has been the emergence of this experimental horror thing that's probably most epitomized by Skinamarink, but you could also say, which the TV Glow has elements of this, where this kind of more spiritual, but also like, let's like rub our eyes with our fists, and then when all the like dust mites appear in our vision, like that's the movie. This kind of like horror as a state of mind. And I thought it was interesting to see that kind of come into a more, not mainstream film, because VHS is hardly mainstream, but I like the idea of the genre talking to itself and like there being like movements, and these movements get subsumed by directors and then spit back out. Like you could make the argument that some of the stuff that's happening in Smile is stuff that Mike Flanagan was doing in like Ouija 2 a few years before that. So like
Oculus, especially Oculus is, that's the one that reminded me of.
You can see influence play into influence, and I liked that at the end of this. I was like, wow, like this is like if Skinamarink made an Alien movie.
It's a great point. And Skinamarink, which I don't think you enjoyed.
I also just attributed Skinamarink to Skinamarink as if that was the filmmaker.
Jim Skinamarink. Yeah, that was the writer-director of the film. I think it was Kyle Edward Ball was his name. Shall we talk about Azrael?
Sure.
This is a curious one. Yeah. Directed by E.L. Katz, who made a movie many years ago that I wrote about for Grantland.com called Cheap Thrills, starring the great character actor Pat Healy. And it's written by Simon Barrett, who has been a longtime Adam Wingard collaborator.
Yeah, wrote You're Next.
He did. I think he has a writing credit on the most recent Godzilla X Kong movie.
Salute to you, sir.
Thank you, Simon, for your contributions. Samara Weaving, another resonant final girl in the culture right now. And this is sort of like a post-apocalyptic movie about a world in which cult-like people have given up their voices.
They've renounced their right to speak.
Cut out their vocal cords, seemingly. And they are being pursued by these kind of undead creatures that feast on flesh. And the whole movie is it entirely wordless? I guess there's one character who speaks in the whole movie. Samara Weaving, the movie is almost entirely trained on
It's
her.
like 85 minutes long.
It's like a grindhouse folk horror movie.
Yeah.
What'd you think of this?
Probably have just seen way too much Walking Dead to like view this with like clear eyes, which is not a knock on the film or its originality. It's just more like this kind of like, what if we're the real enemies, after an apocalypse,
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it did remind me of a very fun subgenre of horror, which is like survivalist near future stuff. Stakeland is a great example of this in recent memory. That it's a pretty cool experiment. She's great. Samara Weaving is reliably awesome. And
really physical performance.
Yeah.
Running, climbing trees, getting thrown around.
And a really great experiment of like how do we communicate story, but also like lore and deep kind of background of what's going on.
With
no words. That's fucking crazy. So I don't know like how far you can take a title card, which is essentially the most background information you get for most of the film. But it was cool to me. I
more
I would say,
impressive than fun.
Yeah, like that's exactly right.
But I loved the ending. Loved the ending.
Yeah.
And I won't spoil it for anyone who wants to check it out. This movie will be on Shudder on October 25th if you want to check it out. And it is very short. But just a great reveal at the ending that I really enjoyed. Other stuff in the streaming pile, I saw a bunch of this stuff. I don't know if you've seen any of these movies, but I'm going to talk with you about a few of them. House of Spoils. Did you see this?
That's the Ariana DeBose.
Ariana DeBose plays a chef who is leaving a high-end restaurant where I believe she's a sous chef to be head chef at this new exciting place. Ariane Moayed from Succession is sort of like her benefactor, kind of like the money man who's helping her get it set up. Did not think this movie was very successful. And it's like exactly what you're talking about, where there's like an attempt to appeal to more people here. And it's unfortunate because the filmmaking duo who made this great Amazon Prime movie, Blow the Man Down, in 2020 were behind this. And I thought that this was like way more turgid and kind of like 5 years too late in a post-foodie world.
Yeah.
Like the menu already came out and it's a movie just about like hallucinations and visions and our own trauma and our own experiences and digging through our past. Didn't think it worked that well. Did you end up getting to Caddo Lake?
I did.
Okay.
Not really a horror movie.
It's not a horror movie, but I would like to discuss it with you briefly.
Sure.
And the reason why, and I feel like I've been coming on the show recently and just been dumping on a lot of stuff, which is something I try not to do. But for the most part, I just did not understand this film. Did you understand Caddo Lake?
I pride myself on my ability to grasp like timeline jumping stuff.
I do as well.
I watched a 30 hours of Dark, which is Caddo Lake in German and with nuclear power. So I think I got the broad strokes, but this was a very strange movie. Again, this is another one where I was like, what happened along the way? Dylan O'Brien and Eliza Scanlon are both very compelling performers, and I think I understand the pitch here, but the execution was kind of lacking. I feel bad. I feel like we should be like recommending more stuff.
I'm doing this because I'm kind of making a point, and there's a couple of other movies. The Caddo Lake movie is a movie that features a pretty meaningful kind of time jump quality to it without giving anything away. And the way that it is explicated and then clarified is very poor, in my opinion, like quite poor. And I think if it had been made more clear, maybe it would have just felt like a better movie to me. But I think that there was something missing in the storytelling as well that never totally cohered. It is produced by M. Night Shyamalan's company, and it has Shyamalanian style twists to it. But that movie, there's a movie coming out on Netflix called Don't Move on October 25th that I had a chance to see. House of Spoils. They feel like movies that were being made for theater release and getting dumped, just like Salem's Lot. These were movies that were meant to be movies that have like rising young stars, and then the studio got to look at the cut and they were like, let's put that on streaming because it doesn't totally work. And I'd like to get out of that phase. If you're going to make a streaming horror movie, let's like put some definition around what that means. Does that mean you can take more chances? Does that mean you can be more daring? Does that mean I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, just because a movie is on streaming doesn't mean it needs to appeal to everyone.
I would love to, if anybody who works on these kinds of movies, reaches out and gives us a little bit of background information about like for instance, like for House of Spoils, was that made for Amazon? Was that independently financed and
I don't know.
Amazon said, we'll do this, but it has to have X, Y, and Z done to it, like to fit certain algorithmic needs for it? I would be very curious to know about like some of this, because there's movies that are made for streamers. I get the impression It's What's Inside was made to be a Netflix movie.
It was not.
It was not. Okay.
No. It's What's Inside was made independently by a person who had worked in marketing for Netflix over the years. But he made the movie independently and took it to Sundance, and then it got bought at Sundance for $17 million. So even though that's a movie to me that if that movie played in movie theaters, it would be a completely different experience. Now, it seems like it's been very successful on Netflix. I interviewed the director, Greg Jordan, on the show. I like that movie a lot. I think it's like really creative and has good ideas. But it's a movie meant to be watched with like 1,000 people, not a movie meant to be watched by yourself,
Here's
not really
the thing,
paying attention.
Counterpoint, it's also a movie that helps to go back 30 seconds.
That is true. Now, that is an interesting point. The movie does make more sense.
If you can go back and be like, what's the playing card she's looking at? Or what photograph are they holding up? Or when did it tint to red? Like, it does help.
Counterpoint to your counterpoint, if you don't have to work too hard to try to understand what just happened in that environment, you might just have that feeling of, oh shit.
Yeah, I know.
Which the movie gives you a few times. Like Caddo Lake doesn't give you that. Caddo Lake doesn't give you, whoa, dude, you just blew my mind with this.
Yeah.
Whereas, It's What's Inside is designed to throw you.
Yeah.
And if you are able to kind of unpack the archaeology of the storytelling, maybe it won't hold up as well. I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how to wash that, because eventually every movie will come to streaming and it won't matter. But
I think we might be at the very trail end of the COVID sort of let's get this chum off of the boat movies.
Mhm.
Like movies that have been like kind of financed or made over the last couple of years. I mean, like Salem's Lot, for instance, I think they shot that in 21 or
Yes.
something like that. Of maybe all movies will be on Max now, like, and we just won't ever put anything in the theater again.
Mhm.
And it's just like, I wonder whether or not 25 will be stronger, because I think what probably you're hearing is two people who love these kinds of movies so much, and usually we have two or three to be like, you guys, holy fucking shit, and really, like, as far as like the streaming, I don't know, Out Come the Wolves, I thought was really effective.
Mhm.
Not really a horror movie, more of like a survival action movie.
Yes, from the same director who made Backcountry, the
Yeah.
bear attack movie. Yeah.
And I liked Oddity, which is on Shudder.
So let's talk about that one, because I didn't have a chance to talk about it on the show. This is an Irish horror film.
Yeah.
Huge boom in Irish horror movies, by the
Yeah.
way, in the last few years. Damien McCarthy is the director. And this movie is on Shudder now, right? It did have a theatrical run.
It is.
Tell the people what it's about.
It's kind of like I think that there is like a emerging genre of folk horror, or like these kinds of ideas of like, historical totems that somehow influence horror of the current. So it's basically about these sisters living in Ireland. One is blind and works in a kind of curios shop, like a sort of novelty curiosities shop. And the other is married to this, and is an architect or he's a doctor. He's a doctor at an asylum. And the sister dies, so the sister who is she's murdered. One sister is murdered, and the blind sister a year later thinks she's sort of started to untangle the mystery around what happened to this woman. A man has been sent away for it, but she starts to believe otherwise, and is basically going about getting her vengeance and justice in this very kind of like arcane way of using these factotum, these items to like sort of bring these people to justice who have wronged her sister. And it's a very effective, like what can we do inside of this house to make it seem as creepy and fucked up as possible?
So I think that the story itself is fine, and there are 3 or 4 scares that are amazing.
Yeah.
And again, like that, to me, that's more than enough to recommend the movie. I think the movie was a little oversold to me ahead of time. I think it played South by, and people were like, this is the breakout, this is the one, which can happen from time to time. But McCarthy has a really good handle on dread. And this movie, I thought, delivered on the dread a few times. I liked it. To me, there's a big difference. There's another movie on Shudder right now called Daddy's Head. I don't know if you had a chance to see that.
I didn't.
It's very similar to Oddity, and it's about a family who the patriarch of the family has died in a kind of like gruesome and tragic way. And his what seems to be sort of like this apparitional representation of his physical form starts haunting his young son and wife. And another movie that has like crazy sound design and great sort of like creature design, for lack of a better word, and just a feeling of unease.
Yeah.
That's really effective. These movies that are made for Shudder are made by people who are like obsessive horror filmmakers who have a deep well of knowledge and are applying maybe more like sophisticated and artful techniques as opposed to like Caddo Lake. You know what I mean? Like that's it's not they're almost like two totally different worlds, and so it's hard to put them beside each other, but they're all streaming movies, right? And so we kind of have to understand them a little bit more differently than Smile 2, which has a $50 million budget and is expected to open huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's tricky. Later this year, this is an incomplete list that we'll give for our favorites of the year so far, but we still have Heretic, which I still haven't seen, which is the Hugh Grant religious horror that's coming in November from A24. And then Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Where's your head at with Nosferatu?
I mean, I can't fucking wait.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Do you think that's going to be in the Oscar race?
I think the unsettledness of the Oscar race plays in its favor because it does look like a true Victorian period piece.
Yeah.
And so maybe there's some crafts love. You know, Jaron Blaschke did get nominated for Best Cinematography for The Lighthouse. So it's not like the Academy knows who Robert Eggers is.
I'm just, they didn't honor the Northman the way we did.
No, but I'll stand and salute him today. Thank you for your contributions, Alexander Skarsgård, Norse god that you are. I'm excited about it as well. I can't wait to see it. They haven't shown it to me. They haven't even been like, hey, you want to do like a toe dip? And just nothing from the people at Focus.
They don't know their audience.
I'm right here.
Yeah.
Let me proselytize.
We're in hour 2 of being like, this one was all right.
2025, here's what's coming. I made a list. Wolfman, Lee Winnell.
That's Christopher Abbott.
Christopher Abbott plays a Wolfman. I have a more Wolfman discussion for you a little later in this episode. Saw 11. Did you see Saw X?
Which one's the Chris Rock one?
Nope, that was Spiral.
That's Spiral. Then there was like how Jigsaw got made as Saw 10.
No, Saw 10 was Jigsaw gets cancer.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And then he kills all the doctors, right?
Yeah. Well, he
goes to Mexico, right?
He goes to Mexico for an experimental treatment, but then they just rob him.
Just like Jason Street. I think that's the second time I've made that joke on this podcast.
Did you? I don't remember that. That's really good. They just ripped off Jason Street. I thought Saw 10 was good. I enjoyed it.
Do you kind of think Street, like they should have been like, yeah, like he cured his paralysis. He's ready to go.
I think that would have been getting like slightly into the supernatural if
VHS Friday Night Lights
started walking on both feet again.
Street's back. The guy Landry killed comes back.
Shouldn't they just revive Friday Night Lights with the cast and they're in their 30s? Wouldn't you watch that? Who's taking over the car dealership?
Right.
You know?
Buddies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's Chandler and Britain at these days?
I don't know if you want to know what happens to Riggs in his 40s.
I do. And he could use that job.
Is the football element here? They're just like going to watch.
They go to the games. Yeah.
Is Street the OC? Or does Street get the job, the big job? Well, he was an agent, so maybe he's working in NIL.
What's Zach Gilford's? A Saracen? I think Saracen he's the OC.
Well, he wanted to be an artist, didn't he?
Saracen's kind of like the Ben Johnson of West Texas football, right?
Yeah, who's the Sirianni?
Are you willing
Voodoo?
to lose like 5 Plemons cameos just to have this happen because he's just shooting this every day for the next 3 years?
I mean, he's the only guy who's too big for this project right now. Kyle Chandler's about to play a Green Lantern, for fuck's sake.
You have to have him though, because you can't have the Friday Night Lights reboot without him. It's just sauceless.
Where is he now in that world, do you think? Because Landry, Jesse Plemons just turned into like the coolest guy in the universe in the last 5 years.
I can't remember. Strange. What does Landry do at the end? Because Saracen leaves with Julie?
That sounds right.
I think they go to Chicago.
Okay. Where's Tyra? Man.
Wherever, man.
God bless her.
God bless her.
What's her name? Adrienne Palicki? She was great. Very talented actress. The Conjuring Last Rites?
Uh-huh. That's the last one.
Is that what they say?
Yeah. And he's been talking about what it means to end this story.
I will always watch a Conjuring movie.
Me too.
Megan 2.0. I'm excited.
Sure. Brian Jordan Alvarez back again.
That's right. I forgot he was a part of that.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I thought the first one was not good. So I'm not excited about this, even though
How much did the first one make?
Like $180 million.
Awesome.
It's crazy. It was kind of the smile of that year. It was the first time we'd seen that story on the big screen. People got excited. I didn't really get it. Two for two on those. What'll be the version of that this year? I'm not sure if one exists. Black Phone 2.
Oh, wait, somebody cool is doing Resident Evil. Oh, wait, hold on a second.
I don't know. Dun, dun, dun. You were a real Resident Evil head. You were like, crack open a banquet beer, sit on the couch.
Kreger.
Oh, is that real?
Rumor has it that Zach Kreger has a new project on his to-do list, and it's the Resident Evil reboot.
Dude, Chris is in the trades, man. I
You
fucking
are.
love this.
I'm
You
not
are
in the
so
trades.
deep in there.
That's Fangoria.com, dog.
Let's
Those
go.
are the only real trades to us. Yeah. Fuck Penske. We're
Fucking-
talking about Fangoria
Yes,
over here.
Fangoria can know my location and send me alerts.
BloodyDisgusting.com. Absolutely.
Notifications on.
You've accepted cookies for all
Is
Fangoria
Kreger
content.
about to go to fucking Raccoon City?
I should just ask Kreger. I'll ask him, see if
Ask
he's
him
doing
on the
it.
pod. That's
Yeah.
what Rogan would do.
Zach, come on. Let's talk about it, bro. Let's talk
You're in your
about it.
breaking news getting aggregated era.
I
too.
know.
I know. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did.
Honestly,
I'm
So-
glad I live in a world where Elaine May news is aggregated.
it is cool.
Yeah.
It is nice. That didn't even occur to me. Like, I guess we should be doing a better job of that, Bob, where it's just like, whoa, Sebastian Stan just dropped a little nugget
Do you think
there.
Sebastian Stan would understand if you were like, turn the TikTok camera on?
No, but honestly, by that point in the interview, it was like the mics were off. We were just like, brother,
Yeah.
when you're at this stage of your life, you got to make hard choices. And he was like, I feel you, man. Like we were crushing tape together. in that
I,
way.
And then he
I-
was like, Elaine May is cool. And I was like, he just works for the Ringer
he
now?
was just one of us. Yeah, that was great. He seems great. What other movies? There's a new Final Destination movie next year.
Yeah. Can you get to They Follow?
Companion.
Yeah.
That's from Boulder Light, same people that brought us Barbarian.
Yes. That trailer looked cool.
It does look cool. They Follow. Is that actually happening? Because David Robert Mitchell has another movie that's coming out first with Anne
I thought
Hathaway.
that you had it on the list, so I thought it was like inevitable. Like this is
I don't know.
June 25.
I don't know if it's coming in 25. It is. He is directing it, right?
Yeah, Mike is coming back.
So it feels maybe more like 26 to me.
Okay.
Apparently, his next movie is pretty crazy.
And Hathaway's in it?
And Hathaway.
Is it a horror movie or is it like a...
I think genre, but maybe not pure horror. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. You hate GDT, except for Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, Nightmare Alley is a 5-star masterpiece, and otherwise I could care less about his films. It's like Fish People and Crimson Houses.
Would you like me to sing you some songs from Pinocchio?
No.
Okay. The Bride, which is Maggie Gyllenhaal's Bride, a
Yeah,
Frankenstein
looking
movie,
forward to that.
starring my girl Jessie Buckley.
28 fucking years later. That'll put a little bit of a sell-by date on your life when that happens, man. Let me tell you that.
That we've gotten older. We've gotten older. Alex Garland has gotten older. Danny Boyle's gotten older.
Yeah.
But
Shot on an iPhone, apparently.
is that true?
I read a Wired.com article about that.
Look at you just on the web.
Yeah, I still do it. I still try to be informed when I come on this podcast. And apparently Danny Boyle has been shooting with like a really cool iPhone rig.
Mhm. And you've been managing HollywoodElsewhere.com recently too. How has that been going? You're the ME
No,
of
I'm
that site?
actually Pop Crave.
That's great. I've been running Discussing Film. That's my Twitter account. I Know What You Did Last Summer reboot.
Sure. Kind of miss those movies. I kind of miss,
What are you waiting for?
but like shithouse 90s teens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the post Scream wave. I enjoyed that.
Is that your Hewitt? Yeah.
What'd you think?
She's back. Are they going to try and like Sydney?
Oh, Legacy sequel it?
Yeah.
They probably should.
Yeah.
I feel like, I don't know, Sarah Michelle Gellar, she's probably up for it. Freddie Prinze, they're still happily married. One of the great couples in
It's
Hollywood.
beautiful.
I love that for them.
It's really beautiful.
You mentioned The Monkey, the new Oz Perkins movie. I need to talk to you about Longlegs on this episode, actually,
Okay.
because we haven't talked about it, and it is probably the horror movie of the year so far. And I think you were more mixed on it than I was.
A bit.
Okay.
But we're going to have some real like, what's a horror movie in a second.
Yeah, we are. Okay, so Presence is Soderbergh's new movie. Seeing that pretty soon, I think, by the way.
My guy.
This is his ghost story.
Is that going to be another 2 Stevies in 1 year next year?
Sure feels like it. Black Bag, I think, is dated for March.
Yeah.
So that's 2 Stevies in 3 months, which is very exciting. I'd really like to have him back on the show. Maybe that's something we can make happen. And then Shelby Oaks. Are you up on this one?
No.
New neon movie from Chris Stuckman, the YouTube
Yeah,
movie reviewer.
For sure.
And his directorial debut, which is a horror movie, which I think played at, Was it Fantastic
Or
Fest or
beyond.
one of those?
Fantastic Fest.
Maybe Fantasia Fest, one of those two. And got a warm response, apparently.
Do you think we would do well at Fantastic Fest if we just walked around?
What do you mean by do
Like
well?
there's Fangs Fennessey and CR the Gimp, like just kind of like.
Yeah, I think we'd be warmly received.
That's cool.
I think
One of these years.
it's a challenge because it's usually immediately after Telluride. So the idea of me telling Eileen, hey, I've got to do 5 days in the mountains, and then I have to go directly to Austin to go watch Terrifier 4.
Watch CR have 2 camels. Yeah.
No, more like 5 Lone Stars
I know.
and get embraced by all the boys in the street. Let's talk about the best horror movies of the year. Now, I've made an executive decision to take one of mine off to talk about another movie so that we can make this a fully robust list. I like your list.
Thanks.
Your number 5, I simply have not seen the film, nor have I heard of it. And once again, I salute you.
I brought this up in passing when we either did I can't remember. We did another horror episode earlier this year,
yeah.
and I think I might
you're
have
on
mentioned
Abigail.
this because
Yeah.
you were like, you really are watching tape.
You're in these streets.
I'm a ball knower.
You are.
My number 5 is more of a nod to the totality of this series, which is Horror in the High Desert. This is the 3rd one. It's called Firewatch. And it is a
That's how
continuing...
they're describing this episode.
Any moment now. It can fucking flare up. It is a continuing story about a guy who gets lost in the first film in the high desert, just adjacent to where we live in the Mojave area. And the story kind of iterates on that. It's a found footage film. I would say that there are some very janky storytelling contraptions in this movie. A lot of talking head interviews of true crime podcasters who are telling you the story, but then like the footage does just not necessarily like fill in all the blanks.
Okay.
But the actual scares and the, I would call, relentless tempo of the found footage element was very good. And this is kind of in the Hell House LLC vein of like films that have had horror Reddit a buzz, have like a solid community backing, and like it's also just like pretty good place to set a found footage horror movie is the high desert. These kind of are a little bit more mainstream scary than your Skinamarink or your Outwaters, which are the more recent kind of like almost experimental versions of found footage horror. But I just thought I would throw it out there. It's an obscure title, but I liked it.
It's a great shout out. Where can I watch it?
I believe it is free on Prime. I'm not positive.
How exciting. My number 5 is called Blackout. I mentioned that I had not seen this movie when we did that episode in April around Abigail, and that I was looking forward to it. And this is the new independent horror movie from Larry Fessenden, who's one of the dons of independent horror. And he's made a Frankenstein movie. He's made
a Wolfman movie. Right?
This is his Wolfman movie.
Oh, fuck yes. Okay. Tell me about it.
So, like all movies, it's a Glass Eye Pix movie. It's very low budget. You got to go in knowing that it's going to be very handmade. But he's got a pretty awesome cast collected around this story about an artist in upstate New York who it does the thing that all Wolfman movies do, which is sort of like, is he a Wolfman? Is this a manifestation of his psyche, or is he just an alcoholic?
Yeah.
And is he just blacking out and not realizing what he's doing? But he's living in this small town, and every full moon, he transforms and kills somebody. And then there are these murders around town, but someone in the community who is not a white person has been wrongly accused of these murders. And so Fessenden, as he always does, kind of wends in some of the social commentary with the movie. Then there's also, the movie it has a very familiar framework through the first 45 minutes where you're like, okay, turning into a Wolfman, this would be tough. You know, like if you're living in a small town, he just broke up with his girlfriend, he's trying to mend fences, he's got a complicated relationship with his dead dad, drinks too much, has his beautiful charcoal drawings. And then the movie takes this interesting turn where it was like, if you were Wolfman, what would you do? And this guy is like, I need assisted suicide. Like, I can't be left to my own devices anymore because I'm dangerous.
Like, maybe I'd play for the Knicks.
That's true. If you looked like Michael J. Fox, you might do that. But this guy, who's played by Alex Hurd, who gives a great performance in the movie, tries to stop himself, and it goes terribly wrong. And this movie's free on Tubi right now.
All right, I'm going to check it out.
And I just thought it was really cool. And like Wendigo and like Depraved and like all of his movies, you know, he made a vampire movie. He's made all these great movies that are these one part character study, one part monster movie. And Fessington's been doing this forever, and they're all interesting. They're all good. They all bring something new to the table to these kinds of films. So I recommend
My
it.
2B algo right now is gotten so deep. I've been finding it very soothing to fall asleep to spaghetti westerns. So my 2B algorithm is just like the far reaches of spaghetti westerns because they've got all of them, and it's all like at the bottom of a coffin with a stick of dynamite, my friend, you know. It's Klaus Kinski. Like, but I haven't been surfed this on Tubi,
Okay.
but I can't wait.
What's number 4 for you?
Late Night with the Devil. We've talked about this a couple of times. I think that this film was the first little Paul Revere being like, hey, these little fucking movies can make some money out here. You know, like people want to go see original horror films in the theaters. And
I get the impression this movie was not just a great success at the box office, but also on Shudder. People really, really dug this movie.
Yeah. So for anybody who hasn't heard us discuss this, we did it somewhat in depth earlier in the year, but it's essentially a faux found footage movie about a 1970s late night talk show that has a demon show up. So it's pretty cool.
Paranormal entities.
Yeah. And I think it's like probably only this low in my list because of how early it came out. So, you know, I did a little bit of recency bias playing into some of my choices here. I thought it was excellent. I know some people are like, well, would this work or would that, like, how do they have footage of this, you know, if they're not using these kinds of cameras?
It breaks form a couple of times,
Yeah.
but David Dastmalchian is amazing in the movie. He's so great as the
And it also
talk
just
show
felt
host.
really original. I don't know.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I think there's the British film. What is the British film that has a somewhat similar conceit where it's Ghost Watch, which is also on Shudder right now, which is like an 80s British TV movie about a British live television program exploring a haunted house that is a somewhat similar conceit. And if you haven't seen it and you liked Late Night with the Devil, I highly recommend Ghost Watch.
There was also a Charlie Booker, who does Black Mirror, did a series, just looking for it right now, Dead Set.
Yes, Dead
Which
Set.
is like a zombie outbreak on a Big Brother house.
My number 4 I will hold because it is also on your list a little later down. But maybe I'll do my number 3 then.
Please do.
Because my number 3 is a split. And I want to talk about whether or not these movies apply. So I want to recognize Longlegs. Because Longlegs has been a divisive movie. It's a big hit. I think people have been a bit mixed on its logic and whether or not it lived up to the marketing. The marketing campaign for this movie was very aggressive. I have said on the show, and I stand by this thing, which is just, this is true for me. It won't be true for very many people, but I saw the movie and I liked it. And I was curious enough about it that I wanted to talk to Oz Perkins, the writer and director of the movie, to talk about it. And after I spoke with him about it,
he illuminated it.
The light bulb went on over my head about what this movie is and what it was scratching that I couldn't get to the bottom of. That won't be the case for everybody, but if you liked that movie or watched it and just wanted to hear more, I encourage you to go back to listen to his conversation because he was incredibly candid, not just about his idea about the movie, which is this sort of post-Silence of the Lambs, post-Seven meditation on serial killer movies, starring Micah Monroe, probably our favorite final girl. But it is also a movie that is like much more ethereal and feels like living commentary about a kind of movie while also trying to tell the story of a killer and has supernatural elements and true crime elements. But he talked really candidly about his personal life, his father, who was Anthony Perkins, the actor, his mother, and what role she played in his upbringing and what he was told and what was kept from him as a kid, and which is a major theme of this movie.
Quite.
What we share with our children and what we don't share.
Yeah.
And the movie just flashed for me. And so I really, really liked it. And I haven't seen it a second time since I had that conversation with him. And Chris, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to buy it on 4K and I'm going to watch it again. And I'm not afraid to share that with you. Now, I say all this to say that I really admired Longlegs, especially a lot of the craft. And then I saw this movie called Red Rooms. Have you seen this yet?
I haven't.
Okay. So Red Rooms is a Canadian film. It's directed by Pascal Planta. And it's about a woman, a model, living in Canada who becomes obsessed with a serial killer and his murder trial. And along the way, she encounters another woman who is obsessed with this murder trial and this serial killer. And the ways in which their obsession plays out. If you haven't seen this movie, it is available for rent on VOD right now. It is remarkable. It is extremely well crafted. It features an extraordinary performance from Juliette Garipi.
Is it also 7-core? Like, is it also like right on that line where you're like, is this thriller or horror? Because I think Longlegs is horror because of the presence of a supernatural evil.
This is more of a thriller than it is horror. Or it is what an overexposure to true crime interest can do to the human mind, which is horrifying.
Yeah.
So, it's a movie that I'm recommending in part because through the first hour and 25 minutes, I was like, what is this? Like, where is this going? What is this trying to accomplish? And then it takes a couple of bold leaps in the final act. And I thought it was very, very impressive. Imperfect, but very impressive. And together they represent this like alpha and omega of our serial killer obsession. So that's those are my collective number threes. What are your number threes?
I'll take a left turn as well and bring up a film we talked about, maybe in a more mixed fashion than I will right now, because as a horror film, I think Alien Romulus is incredible.
Agreed.
Fede Alvarez is one of the best horror filmmakers alive. I think that if you just take the scares and the kills and the thrills of this film, it's quite awesome.
Yes.
How it works within the Alien timeline and the mythology of Alien and its use of past, future Alien storylines, like that your mileage may vary. And the whole, like, why did you go up there or kind of stuff like about it, fine. But as a haunted house movie where crazy shit is running after you and then the kills are like something bursts through your chest or some acid leaks onto your body and there's water or there's whatever, like awesome, awesome, awesome stuff. And the end is as horrifying as anything you'll see in a movie theater this year. I'm
with you 100%. It's a solid Alien movie. It's a very fun horror movie.
Yeah.
And no surprise. Do you think Alvarez will do another Alien movie?
I don't think this made enough money.
It did pretty well.
Did it?
Yeah, it made like 250 million worldwide, something like that.
I don't know. Okay, so like game this out. If Gladiator 2 is a fucking like movie of the year, like
it made $350
$600 million, do you think Ridley is like, I mean, it's so crazy to talk about because this guy is so old and is still cranking out so many films. And he's already started talking about Gladiator 3. But Fede Alvarez has been like, Ridley and I have talked about perhaps joining the Prometheus Covenant parts of his ideas with like this story somehow. So I would love to see another Alien movie by Fede Alvarez. Ridley Scott's like continuing involvement, what the Noah Hawley show will do, I don't know, but
it's an interesting question. I'm looking at the worldwide box office history for the Alien franchise. Number one is Prometheus with 400 million, which I think was considered something of a disappointment, but it still did well.
Look what they took from us.
I know. Well, that's a whole other conversation. And then number two is Romulus, 350. Number three is Alien Covenant, 240.
Do you think Romulus did so well because it was like, this is just fucking scary? You don't have to.
It plays everywhere. I mean, $250 million around the world because it plays everywhere. I mean, they have an iconic creature, and the innovation of that movie was, what if 21-year-olds? What if 19-year-olds? They never really made an Alien movie that was quite like that before.
For kids.
I like this movie a lot too. I know that people had a lot of quibbles with it, and some of the IP-ification legacy sequel stuff didn't work for people, but it was a good time at the movies.
Yeah, man. Scare for Scare, it was really good.
My number two is The Substance. Do you see this?
I didn't. I'm not a big body horror guy.
I know you're not. I think it would be hard.
What's my body horror? What's yours? Like, what are you like, I could do without that?
Oh, good question. Oh, insects.
Oh, insects.
Yeah. I can't do it. I mean, we talked about
Infested, right?
Infested earlier this year, which is tough. Like I didn't watch, I still haven't seen Sting, which is another spider movie.
But this is not across the board, like you don't like animals horror. You just don't like
animal
bugs.
attacks. I like.
Yeah.
Bugs, I don't like.
Yeah.
And I don't even Arachnophobia, the Frank Marshall movie, kind of freaks me out. I really don't like spiders. I don't like bugs.
Is your house entombed by spider webs yet? Like all houses in LA
the orb weavers. Yeah, man. There's a major orb weaver over my car. I was taking my daughter to school this morning and she was like, "Dad, watch out for that spider." And I was like, "Don't worry, I know exactly where it is and you will not be going near it." I think that's my body horror. Body horror, I love. I love body horror. I talked about it at length. I talked at Amanda about it at length on the pod.
Yeah. This is a divisive film online.
So I've heard. I understand why it's divisive. I think there are a few things that Coralie Farge does in the movie, particularly consistently repeating her point that seems to be bothering people. It is unafraid to show you the same imagery over and over and over again to bludgeon you with her point. I'm not here to litigate feminism. I'm not really interested in that.
Turn to TikTok.
Chris is, though.
on.
Yeah, which side do you come down on, Chris? Does it represent
do you think
your
women
feminism?
should have rights?
I think that Demi Moore should.
She's amazing in this movie. So
Yeah.
if you just for her and Margaret Qualley and what they accomplish in this movie, this is one of the best horror movies of the year, without question for me.
Yeah.
I could not believe the lengths that it went to in the final 45 minutes. I was laughing, hooting, and hollering in my seat. Is its gender politics as profound as somebody on Twitter wants it to be? I don't care. Like, I had a lot of fun watching the movie. I thought it was very, very well executed. It's like a few of the movies we talked about here too. Just amazing practical effects, and this is work that I think is like largely overlooked in this digital era of movie making, especially in horror. I hate digital effects in horror movies.
Me too.
So I loved the swing of this movie and the sense of humor that it had, and I thought Demi Moore in particular is extraordinary. So the substance. Number 2 for you.
Strange Darling.
So have we even said any words to each other about this movie yet?
Yes. Haven't we?
I think we texted with Bill, who I know also liked it. I think that's it.
Fucking awesome movie.
Really cool.
Yeah. I honestly, my top 2 are 2 that I think I walked out of and was like, this is the consequence of watching too many horror movies, and this is the consequence of just being 46 and doing shit like this, is that I immediately started like kind of picking at it.
Uh-huh.
My top 2 are the movies that have stuck with me the longest, that have haunted me, that have made, I've thought about the imagery, I've thought about the music, I've thought about the performances. Strange Darling is awesome. It might be too thriller. There's nothing supernatural about it. I think if it was told basically in a linear fashion, it would essentially play like a slasher movie with a twist. But it felt more horror than any other genre to me. And I think some of the storyline, like the Ed Begley,
Barbara Hershey
element, almost feels like fantastical, like it's in a horror film. It almost feels like a children's story or something.
I love the close-up images of the breakfast that they're making in that sequence. It's such like great little detail.
And that's an example of something where I was just like, what a great idea. Like, what a great idea is to just like show this like nourishing, we've reached the end of our time and we can do whatever we want kind of like
literally
moment.
I think what you and I are eyeing in our life.
It's like, when can I put a whole stick of butter in an egg? I just thought this was such a thrill, and a lot of the stuff that JT Mulner and Giovanni Ribisi brought visually reminded me of Tobe Hooper stuff from the 70s and 80s, combined with the kind of Quentin Tarantino narrative chop-up method that we were kind of raised on.
I think it's another movie that if you pull at the string too hard and start getting into like cinema sins, here's why this isn't as smart as it thinks it is stuff, you're cutting off your nose to spite your face.
I didn't think this movie was like, I'm so smart.
Yeah. How far into the quote unquote twist did you go before you were like, I know what's happening here?
I think in the seduction, like
in the first 35 minutes.
In the seduction, I was just like, also just like my brain was like, it would be weird that everybody was like, you have to see this without knowing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie was Kyle Gallner attacks this woman.
Yes.
And I think that the actual like the opening scene of this movie is phenomenal because of that.
Yes.
Because to take the Kyle Gallner character from what we see in the beginning and bring it all the way back around, and then also flip it a little bit again at the end, is so great.
I totally agree. I think this movie is very, very cool and very exciting, and another example of like an indie movie that, it didn't do like gangbusters at the box office, but it made noise. And I don't know where it's going to stream. I'm sure it will stream somewhere. I think a lot of people are just going to discover it on streaming. And to your point, shot on film looks beautiful.
Awesome.
It beats its chest about being shot on film, but why not?
If it's available for VOD, but it's not available.
Yeah, and I don't know what its streaming home will eventually be, but we'll see. Great pick. When I saw you put it on your list, I was like, why didn't I think of that? But I'm glad that you shouted it out. My number 1 is the first Omen, which
we saw
is weirdly, I think, is in my top 10 right now of the year. This is Arkasha Stevenson's directorial debut. It is a Lega prequel to the original Omen film. And everything that's in the movie that is about the Omen, the original film, I didn't really care about. I wasn't really super interested in. Everything in the movie that was about Stevenson's portrayal of women's bodies and the encroaching control from the church and the country and men and all these other things, all that stuff was the non-prescriptive, kind of like finger wagging version that I'm looking for. It was like larded with ideas, super gory and gross and beautiful at the same time. So sustained and artistic. It's like everything that I want from a movie like
Great
this.
Nun year. Shout out to Immaculate as well.
That's right.
This movie is like basically about the madness of faith. Like if you say, the idea of especially like the Catholic religion is to have this relationship with God, to hopefully hear God in your head. If that's happening, are you not hearing voices? Like in that, this woman who thinks that she's been saved by the church, but has essentially been picked by the church to bear this unbearable thing. It's awesome. Awesome movie. I agree. The redoing the Omen at the end of it is kind of like feels stapled.
It's very deflating after this extraordinary movie that makes all these bold choices.
Yeah, and I would love to know whether or not, like, if Arkasha Stevenson was like, I just want to make a fucking crazy Polanski movie set in a church in Italy in the 60s or 70s or whatever, like, would they let her without it being part, like, does it have to have some sort of on-ramp to?
It's a good question. I mean, this movie was considered a bit of a disappointment at the box office this year, which I think is interesting because I don't know if anyone was clamoring for more Omen content. It's not like, there were 4 Omen movies, I guess 5 Omen movies.
Damien
total.
Omen, yeah.
Damien Omen, Damien Omen 2, Damien Omen 3, Damien Omen 4. And and then there was a remake, maybe like 15 years ago. Was it Liev Schreiber in the remake?
Yes.
And then that movie didn't really do like a ton of business. So the idea that like, oh God, they really fumbled the bag with the first Omen.
We got this hot Omen IP burning a hole in our
it's all
pocket.
a little silly, but I loved this movie, and I think people should check it out. It's on Hulu right now. What's your number 1?
In a Violent Nature.
So this is my number 4.
This is the horror movie I've thought about the most.
This is the end cap to our Terrifier 3 conversation.
It absolutely is. And in some ways, In a Violent Nature is a little bit of like the Pavement fans' Terrifier. Do you know what I mean? It's like, do you think you're a little too good for Terrifier? So then you watch In a Violent Nature and it has much longer subjectivity tracking shots. So I'm turning the mirror inward here. But aside from this like truly extraordinary kills in this film,
the one at the edge of the cliff is on another level.
Yeah,
like even in the year of Terrifier 3, it's on another level.
Truly, actually, well done non-kill horror sequences are hidden in this film. And when I say hidden, it's because the film is largely told pretty much exclusively from the perspective of the killer,
with one sequence.
Yes,
that is not.
But there is a like teens at the campfire fucking around scene that's just like better written than it needs to be.
Agreed.
A lot of the times, what I kind of like long for is just like someone to polish the dialogue or something in these movies, because they can just be so like, did ChatGPT shoot out like what you need to say before the killer jumps out of the closet here? This is not that. This is actually just really well done. It's an incredible sense of place. And not only features just like a very demanding kind of like filmmaking discipline where it's just these like incredibly long tracking shots of this killer stalking through the forest so that you're essentially feeling the slow procession of death approaching these nameless, faceless characters, essentially. But then the end is like truly thought-provoking, I thought. And just it's the one that's sort of stuck with me the most.
The most interesting discussion point I've had in an interview with a filmmaker this year is I tried to like get my feelings across to Chris Nash, the director of the movie, about why I like this stuff. And I said to him,
am I okay?
Yeah. Why? Like, what is it in you that makes you want to spend time in these worlds, to create these casts and these practical effects and to design these kills in this way? Like, do you ever think about what it means or why it's of interest to you? Because I think about it and I'm a little concerned for myself, but also I can't deny that I find it very fun. And he was like, I can't spend time thinking about that. If I spend time thinking about that, it all falls apart. And I don't want to go there, which I thought was a fascinating answer. And Chris Ness is just like a very kind Canadian guy. And I was like, how could you, like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, you're way too normal in this conversation to have created this thing. But that's so often the case. It's like if you watch interviews with Toby Hooper or Wes Craven or John Carpenter or all the people that we think of as the masters of the form. I had JT Mullner here sitting across from me. I was like, what a cool guy. Just had a nice hang. There was an earthquake during our interview. Totally fine. Didn't matter. I don't know. Maybe it takes a kind of normalcy to make the most fucked up thing.
I think that there's something healthy about how unhealthy these movies are, where it's like, this is it's a good outlet for it. Not that we need an outlet for it. I mean, it's not like I'm like, I secretly harbor like a desire to pull someone's head through their spine, like.
Yeah, it's either you watch these movies or you make these movies.
No, but I think that it gets to the most pure version of cinema that I can think of, which is it makes you feel something. And now this might not be something that you feel when you watch a Colleen Hoover movie, but it is something.
Did you see that movie?
No, but I'm following
the saga.
Yeah, the saga very closely.
I would enjoy if for our best movies of the year episode, you gave that movie a look.
Okay.
Just to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
Because when I saw it, I thought I was taking crazy pills.
Because you thought it was so good?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. No, not because of that. Why don't you read the list of movies? Because some of the listeners have said we're not doing a good enough job enunciating the titles of the films.
Yes. Okay. I'll do that. My number 5 film is Horror in the High Desert, Part 3, Firewatch. That's available on VOD. I think it's streaming on Amazon Prime.
It's just a great title.
Number 4 is Late Night with the Devil, which is definitely streaming for free on Shudder if you have that, or your AMC Plus subscription on Amazon. That's available now to watch. Alien Romulus, directed by Fede Alvarez, the most recent Alien entry, and that is on VOD now.
Correct.
And I think will be on Disney Plus at some point in the near future. Strange Darling, which is available on VOD, but it does not have a streaming for free home yet. That's awesome. And In a Violent Nature is on Shudder, right?
That's correct. My list is Blackout, the new Larry Fessenden movie, which is on Tubi right now. Number 4 is In a Violent Nature, which Chris just mentioned. Number 3 is a pair of films, Red Rooms, which is available on VOD, and Longlegs.
You love a double pick.
I do love a double pick. I like to cheat. Number 2 is The Substance, which I don't believe is out of theaters yet. I think it's still in theaters. I pointed this out to...
It is almost entirely on Twitter, though. Like when you go to Twitter, like
it's a very good point.
Scenes are on.
Yes, which is not a trend that I really like personally. But here's one other thing I want to add, which I don't know if I mentioned this on the pod or not, Bob, when we did this episode with Alex Ross Perry. And next week we have a very special Halloween episode with Alex Ross Perry, the Slasher Movie Hall of Fame that we recorded when I was in New York. But significantly more people have listened to the Substance episode than the Wolves episode of this show. And frankly, that's so exciting. And I think that also puts an end cap on this Terrifier 3 conversation that we're having, which is that it is easier to super serve fans of something in a thoughtful way than it is to try to corral millions of people with the most mainstream thing that has nothing really at the heart of it.
Espresso ad.
Yes, exactly. So how exciting that people are discovering the Substance.
Do you think Wolves would have been better if Art the Clown was in it? If that's who those fixers were trying to help.
Yeah, imagine if we just remade Wolves and it was
and it was Brad Pitt being born by a demon.
No, it was the deep sea helmet killer, the firefighter helmet killer from In a Violent Nature, and Art the Clown teaming up to black bag an issue.
Yeah.
Would you watch that movie?
Yeah.
Okay. My number 1 movie was The First Omen. It's on Hulu right now. You feel good?
We just did incredible work today. I usually leave that to you to evaluate our performance, but I think that we delivered a lot of content. We did the work too, man. We fucking we watched the tape.
We got it. We do. You've got me thinking that we do have to go to one of these horror movie festivals and see how you're received. Like, will you be lifted
not me,
up?
Us.
No, I want you like in the full bear costume from Midsummer. I want you to be burned at the stake. Like, I want you to get the total treatment. I feel like you deserve it. You've earned it with fucking Firewatch, that's a pull.
Yeah.
That's you at your best.
Thanks, dog.
So thanks so much for what you do. Thanks to Bobby Wagner for his work on this episode. He's our producer. Thanks to Jack
Bob,
Sanders.
how many movies of that we talked about have you seen?
On the final list that you guys came up with, I have only seen Alien Romulus, which I thought was a fantastic film.
It is
Excellent
good.
work. Had a great
You would
time.
like Strange Darling.
I think I would too.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I didn't make it out to theaters, and I think it's PVOD right now, so I'm gonna check it out. I'll check it out.
We definitely gave people more than 30 films.
Yeah.
This is the work.
Yeah. But we were also like, we spent like 30 minutes being like, Caddo Lake sucks.
You know what's great about this show is that in 72 to 96 hours, I'll just be back in this studio just rattling off what I think are the best picture power rankings. That's
Are
the
you
high
going
and the low.
Straight down the barrel solo for that?
Yeah.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
It's really happening.
Is that your dream?
No, I just know that the coward thing is coming for you. Not coward.
Coward.
Colin
The
Coward
herd.
thing. When you're just like staring into a camera and being like,
Give us your best coward about the best picture race right now.
I told you. No, I'm trying to think. Coward's inimitable to me.
He's hard because he goes, now I will tell you that the thing to remember about Honora is it is about a sex worker. Now, in the history of the Academy, we know sex workers.
You know what movies aren't about sex workers? Sing Sing.
We're also going to talk about Honora on this episode. We pre-recorded a conversation with Amanda, so her spirit will be back. Amanda's doing very well, by the way, for anybody who's curious out there. Amanda and her beautiful family are thriving, and we miss her on the show, but she will be back sometime soon.
And now she's got so many things to watch after this episode.
I can't wait to hear her review of Oddity and Strange Darling. Thanks to the listeners of this show. We'll see you guys soon.